How's it going? Welcome to another episode of the Always Be Testing podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Grange, and super excited for Rabah today. What's up, man?
We did it.
See you.
We finally did it. You were incredibly gracious in your schedule flexibility, and then we're at a beautiful office here downtown. There's a vibe going on. There's a big party downstairs. Startup week. Vibes are high. Weather's perfect. Heading to LA tomorrow. We're doing it, baby.
Hell yeah. Welcome.
You got the power stash on.
I
wasn't ready. You got to like prep me for that thing. But
next time.
Yeah, next time.
I'll give you a little more
NSF
notice.
dub tag or something. I think it's dangerous. I love it.
Like Rabah said, we're live at the Capital Factory. We got a great crew here and ready to dive into it. I think you might be talking to the Pied Piper of DTC E-Comm. I don't know. What do you think?
It landed. Well, soft landed.
It landed.
It didn't stick him. It landed. It's good.
It's okay. Tell us how you got into this weird, wild world of D2C e-com.
Yeah, man. I've been in the marketing game for a minute. So I'm old. I'm 38, and I graduated. I actually wanted to be an investment banker at one point in time in my life. Was really into finance. Shout out to investment bankers. Was like, that's definitely not it. So I ended up going to school for economics, and then I got really nerdy. So I got into photography. I got into website building. So I was really deep in like AWS, WordPress. And then I wanted to start actually making money. And so I realized that creating a cash register was actually a worse idea than making other people money. When you could make other people money, you could ask for more money. So because I was making websites that were beautiful and functional and incredible, and people were like, hey, why isn't this thing working? You're like, well, it is working. Your business sucks. And so I took that photography, and then one of my really good friends at the time, his wife was a pretty big yogi on Instagram. So like, 500,000 followers kind of thing, not like massive, but pretty big for at the time. Yeah. It's meaningful. Yeah. And the followers were really engaged. Anyways, we decided to do an ebook together. Yeah. Her shtick at the time was like, she was a handstand queen, incredible at handstands. She had just moved to Costa Rica. So I went out there, shot all the photos for the book. She wrote all the copy and things like that. And then I designed the book. And it was actually a really interesting life lesson for me, because I can get lost sometimes in kind of where we're talking about form over function, where, I need this tool or I need that thing, and I did the whole thing. It was like a 120-page book. I did the whole thing in Canva. And it was pushing Canva to the limits. Like, it was breaking all the time, all this stuff. And we ended up doing 4 more books, I think, together. Yeah, I think we did 5 in total. And after that, I taught myself InDesign, which is Adobe's actual, like, proper print product, where you're kind of, it's what professionals use kind of thing. Yeah. The first, even though I did all the other ones more professional, et cetera, the first one did by far the most money. And so it's just such an interesting juxtaposition of action breeds information, and just do it. Like, a lot of times those last percentage points of getting something from 85% to 90% or 92% to 95% perfection might not be worth the squeeze. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there is definitely a good enough, and there's definitely and I'm not against using great tools. I just think that, or at least from my experience, I use it to obfuscate my ability to create. I'm like, I need to find the right tool before I actually do the thing, where it's just like, no, do the thing and keep doing the thing. And then okay, if there's a point that you start to degrade, then because of a structural thing like a tool impediment or something like that, 100% then get the thing. But don't not do the thing because you don't have the thing.
Bias for action.
Yes, so well put.
And I give props to you, because I had no idea how multi-talented you are. As we do get to learn about
I'm
you.
Old. I've had multiple lives. So.
Me too. How did things kind of evolve from there into the world of direct to consumer e-com?
Yeah.
And that bridge. Tell us more about that.
So once we had the book created, this was during the time of, I would almost call it like the golden age of Facebook ads. And so we would put $1 in and 6 would spit out.
2014.
So this is, around about that kind of peak where Instagram was really peak, and so this was kind of pre-feed or real stuff. This was still like main feed stuff, and so she would post, on Instagram, and then we'd run some retargeting ads, and you just see all this in real money. You know what I mean? Like the money was in. We were on WooCommerce because I was building on WordPress at the time, and so that was like, so that was kind of my first meaningful foray into in absolute terms now, it's not at the scale of anything impressive, but for me, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's like,
is there anything more addicting and validating than seeing those initial performance coming in from digital?
So good. It's so interesting too, because you get like I haven't run a proper ad account in probably like two and a half years, because I was doing a little bit of the triple L paid at the beginning. But yeah, there's this weird, interesting addiction and accomplishment of like testing, shipping, and then seeing that it was I've definitely, because I used to run an agency, and I've definitely been down the rabbit hole of like, you're checking dashboards multiple times a day, and it can be challenging sometimes to extract your identity from your performance, like hence the OG, you're not your ROAS, but man, when something hits, and it was at that time too, it was like, because she was hosting events as well and stuff like that, and that was one of the biggest mistakes I made, which I don't really regret, because she's a dear friend of mine, but she was like, do you just want to I'll just give you a percentage of whatever kind of stuff you bring in? I was like, no, just pay me $5,000 flat or whatever. I forget what it was. And we ended up driving like 60,000 or some absurd amount of money for her in like 2 or 3 days. And
wow.
I was just like, oh my gosh. Definitely good not friend. All me, but it was I was her oil rig on her land kind of thing. Like I was able to extract that value for her.
Great analogy.
So anyway, so from there I went to luxury real estate firm that we were talking about. And then from that I did all the paid media at Whole Foods for the recruitment vertical. So I did the whole, I was full Austin. I was on a boosted board. I had a man bun. I was working at Whole Foods in the zero drop, like New Balance shoes. Like, I mean, full hipster Austin. So that was cool.
Whole Foods, the drip today is pretty good too.
It's elevated. It's more not so on the nose. There's
a little CMO vibe, like relaxed vibe.
Yeah, it's I went through like the big phase of kind of like peacocking, when you're younger, where it's just like, it's the
you've accomplished a lot, so you don't need to peacock as much, right?
It's the Arab Mexican coming at me, where it's just like this dual forces of like, I need fancy, some sort of animal skin on me, bright colors.
I love it.
But yeah, so after Whole Foods, then I did agency life, an agency out of New York called Flatiron, and that was probably the first time I spent real money. I was still in Austin. No, I was still in Austin. So I've been in Austin 13 years now. Awesome. Everything's been out of Austin.
Very cool.
And then the agency life was really cool. That's when I really saw scale. And it was awesome too, because this was kind of the peak VC time as well. So it was a year and a half before COVID kind of thing, where they're like, the markets are just, everything is cocaine and champagne. And so we were getting, we were on percent of spend.
Oh, wow.
And we were working with all these venture-backed companies. And so we were working with like WAG, Clutter, Deepak Chopra, Jackpocket, like
awesome
proper-sized companies with a bunch of money. We worked with a bunch of scooter companies. That was obviously like, you saw how everything worked
peak
out.
Scooter,
it was Peak Scooters, everything. I forget the one we were working with, but yeah, and the money they had, they raised, and it was pretty incredible, honestly. But like I was pretty well versed in economics, business models, et cetera. Because that's what I went to school for. And I'm just looking at these numbers. You're just like, dude, we're acquiring people for $500. Like, nobody's ever spent more than $500 with you ever. Like, how does this work? And it was just because I think there's a certain aspect of what's the goal. And their goal was like, we're going to raise more money, so I need the hockey stick up and to the right. Whatever it costs, just as long as you can give me up and to the right, because I'm a growth story, I raise more money. But anyways, the too long didn't read there that was awesome, because there is just problems that you run into at scale that you just don't when you're spending $5,000-$10,000 a day versus you're deploying $50,000-$70,000 across multiple channels. Like there's Facebook spend limits, there's things that happen. There's the other thing is, this is why, and I'll say allegedly, but why percentage spend, I don't know if this is always the best arrangement for certain clients, because there was times where you could get in there, you're like, hey, we're underpaced, we're hitting our performance targets, but we have clearance to spend, $500K this month, and there's still $135 to spend over the week. Right? And you're just even though that might not be the most efficient spend, like as an agency, you're like, dude, I was cleared. They wanted to spend $500K, and like it's our job to help them deploy that capital. And so
it's amazing.
It was interesting. Like real estate is almost the same way. It's really weird where it's like, if you get a worse deal for me, you make more money, even though you're representing me. So anyways, that's not. I don't hate percentage spend. It was just really interesting to understand the realities sometimes on the ground and stuff like that. So and then did my own agency.
That's awesome.
Which was awesome. I call it an agency, but it was really more like a boutique, almost like fractional CFO or CMO, where I was partnering pretty deeply with these people, where I was just on high retainers and then either fill in any gaps they had or oversee that at the strategic layer, reporting, et cetera, and then triple.
That's awesome.
Kind of a long random walk down Wall Street, random walk down Rabah Street, but it was great, man. It was in a weird way. There was this kind of unique, I guess, like sine wave of, I think generalists don't necessarily get paid as much, but they have a higher ceiling, because usually the best leaders are generalists, but specialists get paid more quicker, because they're and candidly, they just get paid more in certain areas. Again, lower ceiling, but I have a friend that I'm super nerdy. He's like king nerd, and he codes in this very kind of archaic language that only certain people use, et cetera, but he's the guy.
It's definitely king nerd.
It is king nerd. I'm talking about like super esoteric language, like only certain kind of like COBOL kind of shit. But like he's that guy. So whenever but he's charged like $2,000 an hour, kind of stuff, because like it's so important. It's ingrained to this business, and it's like, we're not going to change our whole code base. We just have to pay somebody to fix this or do that. So there's definitely a specialist, but again, like most leaders are generalists. There might be some like engineering people that are technical, then also switch off to be a leader. But when you're a leader, you can't be an IC. Like it just doesn't work.
I got to dive into some really good stuff, because you dropped some awesome things in there. Back to Flatiron experience. Obviously, those years were very different than what we're experiencing now. Yeah. But what are some things that you would say are good learnings that you got from those years that are applicable now?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I took away from that, and I think it also solidified my understanding of how to run a successful agency, is the majority of my time was spent on data gathering and narrative building. Like, so give me the data, what's the narrative I can build around the data? And that was really the majority of the time. And then the whole goal of the meeting was to have them excited about the next meeting. And so you tell them, hey, here's where you were, here's where you are, here's where you're going. Those were kind of the three macro points that I always wanted to do them. And I remember at the time too, because there was, we were working with a publicly traded company out of Australia. That was a big, we did a lot of app install ads. And I still remember there was just, it was almost felt like you're going up on the horns, because they would bring in their whole marketing team, and we were kind of another just little small digression. There was a certain aspect of like, once you charge over a certain ceiling of monthly billings, like agnostic of performance, you're getting fired. And so once we started to get into that 75 to 100K range of billings, they're just like, dude, we just paid you that much for the month. Like, we can hire an internal team, for this. And so that was a little ancillary thing. If you're running a big agency and you have these big clients, if you want to keep them, figure out some sort of stopgap or ceiling that you won't ever charge them. It's not great because you're going to give up that money. but it's also like we almost always got fired and we were killing it. Like it wasn't a performance issue. It was just like, dude, I'm not going to give you fucking $75,000 a year or a month. You know what I mean? Like I can literally build a whole internal
There's
team
a
for
ceiling
this.
despite what people say.
And it doesn't matter how much you're killing it for me, because there's just a certain aspect
Absolutely.
of like, I'm just going to be able to get more out of that. But yeah, so I mean, the biggest things that I learned was understanding the narrative and the data. And then the last thing I would give you is nobody's mad about things breaking. People are mad if they found out something broke. And so if there was any sort of thing that, or just getting in front of it, like you never want to be like, oh man, I did this thing. You actually do, where it's just like, hey, we saw the sites broke, or we saw there's a typo in the ad, or like whatever, we're fixing it right now. Here's what we're doing it, blah, blah, blah. No action on your part, just an FYI. To have that client feel like you care and you're in control. And like, there's nothing worse than getting like, hey, have you seen this ad? Or like, why is there a typo? Or what's this, what's that? And then I think the last thing that stuck with me was you want to treat it like it's your money, but at the end of the day, it's their money. So we just ran into the stereotypical like, hey, this isn't on brand. And so it's like, hey, there's a certain aspect of like, do you want to be right or do you want to make money? And there's some brands that want to be right, where it's just like, hey, I know this is performing for us, but it's just not on brand. And then I had another client where we had a Black Friday, Cyber Monday ad, or actually like an October ad, just to kill it. And there was a pumpkin emoji in the subject line. And you start to get into December or January, like, hey, this isn't really aligned with is this cool? And, is it making money? Cool, send it. But at the end of the day, that was, it's their money, and it's your job to shepherd it and give them guidance and advice on how they want to deploy the capital. But at the end of the day, it's their capital to deploy. And if they want to, put it in a bathtub and light it on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
It's their decision to do it.
Yep. I love what you said about narrative building. I think that's something that is not done particularly well and is such a big opportunity. Is that something you feel you brought into your other work post-agency life? Triple Whale, FERMAT now, your life in general?
At its core, I think people experience the world in stories. And so giving people and being able to create the story, whether that's for yourself, whether that is for your business, whether that's for your partner, like I just think that the mind abhors a vacuum and coincidence, and like it's just really hard for people sometimes to accept it is, where it's just like, dude, it just law of large numbers, like that's just where it landed.
The mind abhors a vacuum. That sounds like a legit quote from a great book you read on your European adventure. Is that true?
Possibly. I probably got it from a book. There's a great book called On Intelligence, which is like Brain 101. And they did an experiment in there where, so you actually have a blind spot in both your eyes, but they're in different spots. And so that's why you don't see the blind spot. And so they flashed the picture of, I think it was like a banana or something like that, to, let's see, because it's crossed. So to the left eye, which would go to the right side of the brain, which doesn't have any executive function. So you can see it, but you can't articulate it. And what would happen is people would pick out the same picture when asked, like, what are you thinking about right now? And like, oh, bananas. And like, why are you thinking about banana? Oh, because I had a banana because I like banana. But it was actually because of the priming from that picture. And that's just how our mind works. And I don't think it's like a good or a bad thing. It's just an is, but like it's just really hard. And so, again, with great power comes great responsibility, where you don't want to mislead people. Like I think a lot of the most impactful stories are sincere and value for value. But yeah, that's where I just realized, like, the narrative building, if you think so the kind of 2-pillar theses, people experience the world in stories, and everybody, if they're not the owner, the only thing they care about is making their boss happy. And so when you marry those two, then you realize, oh man, like my job to be done, that this person's hiring me, is to make them look smarter, better, more awesome to their boss. So what are the stories and data that I can give them to be like, hey, look at how smart you are because you hired us. Here's the things that we're doing. And the more you can wrap up that story in a gift box, the easier it is to give to their boss. And then life gets good when their boss is happy. They're happy. When they're happy, you're happy. And a dirty little secret is if people like you, you have a lot more like leeway in performance. And like it is like you can't just suck all the time. Like there's a certain aspect of like, all right, hey, 100%. I love you, Rabah, but dude, I'm not paying you to be my friend. I'm paying you to perform. But when you have this, nice rapport and people think you care, or people think you care because you do care, is kind of the point. It just worked into, and again, I don't know if it's the economically optimized thing, but the other thing that I kind of, as I got older, was just like, I like to win beautifully. And so very much kind of like Brazil with football or soccer, where it's the beautiful game where they want to win in a certain, and like I'm not a win at all cost guy. Like I want to win beautifully, and I think that unlocks a lot of doors, but also lowers some ceilings and earning potential. But at the end of the day, I think
I love that.
Figure out what your freak flag is and fly it.
Yeah, I love that. I doubled down on a number of comments often, but winning beautifully feels like it's might be coming out of the title of this one, and like it's such an epic line. Like what? Share more about that, because that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and to be fair, cool. This might be why I'm poor. No, there's a certain aspect of, at the end of the day,
I can identify with it.
Exactly. There's a certain,
I really do.
Like I've done some affiliate stuff back in the day, more like not even like not tainting affiliate. This is like black hat. You're making money. There's no like
no offense,
no honor in that money that I was making there, and I just didn't feel good about it, and so like that kind of led me to that, and so I've done things for the money in the past, and it just never really netted out for me. And the other thing is like I am a huge capitalist. Don't get me wrong, but I think of money. I'm really into meditation, and a friend of mine, his dad's a ordained Buddhist monk and just a really chill dude. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, because I really enjoy Buddhism, but there's a lot of conflicting ideals, I guess, if you will, with pure hardcore capitalism, right? Mm-hmm. And so I asked him, well, how do you think of money? Because he was actually fairly wealthy. And he was like, I think of it as energy. And so that had always stuck with me, where it's like the more energy you can put out, because it doesn't put a stigma on it, right? Like you can put energy into good things, you can put energy into bad things, but it's not like something you internalize. And so that has been kind of, so that's maybe cool. I'm not going to be like the 3 Comma Club, but hopefully get in the tens of millions or something like that. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, for me,
that's cool.
Being introspective on where your kind of non-negotiables are, and then build systems and goals around that, where it's like some people might not care, where it's just like, dude, I'll slide into you, I'll rip the candy out of the hand of the baby, like I just want the candy. No judgment on that. It's just wasn't aligned to my truth.
That's not how you roll.
And I think there's nothing wrong with be yourself and do you.
I love the thought of very Austin too, by the way.
Very Austin. Keep Austin.
Respect that. I feel like there's something interesting about the money is energy piece, because in some ways there's neutrality in that.
That's what I love about it. There's no judgment on it. There's no however you want to deploy it and however much you have. It's so well put. Very eloquent. Yes, couldn't agree more.
What an amazing departure. Maybe back to like the concrete of like you have evolved into pretty central piece of building out Triple Whale, being a very prominent figure on DTC, E-Comm, and Twitter, and I think a big part of the Austin DTC E-Comm community, and likewise other spots. How would you maybe categorize for people who are not as familiar with DTC E-Comm's community, and how would you kind of describe it to folks in the audience?
Honestly, I think it's one of the better communities. I was very, very resistant to Twitter early on, just because it's such an active network, not only in engagement, but also in like setting it up, right? Like you have to follow the right people, you have to, and right being not like right or wrong, but right for like what interests you, like the things that make things interesting. But once I like Facebook started to be kind of the joke of like Twitter or Facebook are the friends you went to high school with, and then Twitter are the people you wish you went to high school with, kind of thing. And so But yeah, I just started finding way more meaningful activity and engagement on Twitter, and it was there's just so much free game on there. Kind of what we were talking about offline of like killers, where somebody was like, I mean, I remember at Hey Alex P, and she had like 17, not 17, but 50 or egregiously low followers. Where she's finally now like getting the accolade she deserves, but. There's just some really brilliant people that will engage with you in a meaningful and respectful way. So I think that's really unique. Where finance Twitter can get a little cringy. There's some cringe corners where I think D2C for the most part does a really good job, and everybody's really welcoming. And I think that the kind of candidly the coolest people. That's where I really like the confluence of B2B SaaS and D2C, because B2B SaaS is like daddy money where I have incredible economics, and D2C are like the coolest kids to hang out with. And so it's always been this awesome thing. But yeah, I mean, too long didn't read. If you are in the D2C space, like D2C Twitter is great, man. I mean, obviously there's, definitely some rough edges here and there, but I think on the whole, it's a really nice, meaningful, everybody's really supportive and engaging. And I think there's a nice, like community policing of it as well, where it's kind of like a party that's there's some fun kind of liberties taken, but like if there's a fight happens and then you let the fight happen and then you break it apart, there's not like this jump rage into where people are getting proper hurt. So I think there's a lot of nice guardrails on it, and
that's awesome.
So I know I really what's your take?
I kind of like the community too. It feels similar to, I think affiliate has an interesting kind of.
Yeah, you guys have some good communities. It's so big.
It's tight knit in a different way, even though, and it has different generations. So it's been around for 20 years in some capacity, probably 10 realistically.
That's a really interesting take. I didn't think of the age difference.
But it also has that, like, they're the people you want to hang and party and socialize 100%. With, but then it's kind of grown up, and there's brands that are putting their stamp on it and saying, hey, I believe in this, and 100%. It's a part of my media mix, so it has legitimacy. So I really love where your head's at with that. I feel like there's some similarities between affiliate and D2C, but back to D2C, I feel like it is generally fairly welcoming, very and like academic conversations can be had, and people can truly learn things where it's not just like, okay, we're in this clique and you're not invited. There's certainly some cliquishness, as you referenced, but I encourage people to jump in the water and learn and observe and listen, and I think there's a lot to be had from it. And in real life too,
I think we
talked about that at one of the events here in Austin, where it's like Austin, New York, LA, great freaking epicenters of D2C.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that I think also is what accelerates the awesomeness of the online is the offline. Where like, oh, cool, and there just be so many people where it's like, oh, I know you from Twitter, like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, oh I know you, and like, that's a really cool, like, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the ecosystem because Geek Out was like the thing, and with that being gone, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens or steps in, because I agree with you. And the other thing is, like, events are hard. Like, in real life, events are hard. I've thrown a ton of them at scale, and they're just really hard. But gosh, when you do them well, man, you can make fans for life. Or like, there was a lot of events where we threw that, either somebody met a romantic partner, somebody got a business deal, somebody had a new idea and had zero value add to Triple Whale. But like the value generation, it's almost like a karmic balance of value, where it's like if you one of the things that you need to do is get like top of funnel awareness, like being able to generate value for people without any reciprocity is a hell of a drug, man, where they're going to refer people to you, they're going to talk really highly of you. We had a guy that was he was so awesome. He was like the proper Triple Whale super fan, and he was just, I think it was like FinHub or something. He's like, I can't even use this, I just want to buy it because I want to support you guys. And you're just like, that's not great for a business because those are like zombie clients, but that just goes to show you the power of building like sincere relationships that generate value for people. Like Pete Triple, fuck, man. People were at the company ready to run through the wall for them. People, and not to say that's not doing well now. It's just for me, there was just this. there's a certain aspect, and there was, I think it was Marissa Mayer at Google, where they were kind of just at the cusp of blowing up. And she was like, look around now, this is the best that's ever going to get, which is kind of depressing. But now I kind of see her point where it was like me, Tommy, Alexa, Colin, Kevin. We had the dopest office set up. We had a podcast studio. We had budget to do things. The company screaming. Like it was, I don't know, there's just this unique windows in business life, because eventually you need to grow up, you need to get a finance person, you need to get HR, you need to get all this, but there's this just unique window of almost like that early 20s vibe in your life where it's like you're naive, but you also kind of start to get resources. You start to have, deep connections with humans you care about. You stop doing kind of dumb shit, but you still have a little bit of fun in you. Like, you're not like my age where it's like, dude, Netflix and chill. Let me turn on the TV and 10 p.m. kind of stuff. And it was just,
it gets good after 42. Don't
okay. I just need to get over this damn hump at 38. But it was just a really cool feeling to have the whole team aligned and be able to be performing, and we're performing like everything was just there. It was the 76 Dolphins. Like it was something that obviously I would like to try and repeat, but I don't even know if it was just such a perfect storm of everything of like, because everybody like Tommy, Alexa, Kevin, Colin, all these people are under market. You know what I mean? Like eventually I got them to a good place, but when at that point it was startup, dude, like you're selling the dream and the like you're gonna get some stamps in your passport and like some cheap beer and we're gonna go hunt. Like there isn't. And so I mean I remember Alexa, like I was courting her for months. Tommy was and so it was just this again perfect mix of like talent and culture and personality vibe and like I don't know, it was great.
Well, I think we joke about football and sports and music and other analogies, but I think there's something similar to football where it's like, hey, you got someone on a rookie contract, my goodness, that's a really exciting window, and guess what, folks are going to be earning more and more as they progress in their career, and there's a reality to that. And bringing in different financial rigor or different investor influence or different things change quickly. So I think we've all seen that in our careers, but it's awesome to hear the formula that you witnessed and were part of, and you built, and you were working in the trenches and kind of saw that magic live. You were part of that creation, so it's pretty rad.
Yeah, it was my biggest and probably my only regret outside, is not enjoying it. I was so fixated on performance and like getting, where's my next stage of growth coming from? How do I get more? Because we were just, at one point in time, Triple Whale was the fastest growing company ever, which is crazy to think about. Yeah, it was wild. And so I did so many cool things. I got to go to so many cool places, and I was never present because it was just always like low-key CMO at an early stage startup is possibly one of the worst positions ever.
CMO is hard. It's no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, is exactly. It's the fastest turnover C-suite, even in the Fortune 500 kind of, or even Fortune 100. It's the line that would always go around is like, if things are going well, it's not because of marketing. If things aren't going well, it's because of marketing. You know what I mean? And so you just never, not that you never got your due, but it was just kind of this almost like insurance policy of like, okay, marketing is obviously going to crush it. So like, and so, I regret that. So if you guys do get into that place of like hyper success, definitely look at the mile markers, maybe even pull over, have a peanut butter and jelly, and look at the mountains for a little bit. You can't stay there, but I do regret not enjoying it as much as I could, because I was just so caught up in the performance and the pressure of like, hey man, like, this is a special situation.
Do you think some of that is inevitable? And how much of that do you feel like if say that happened again in some maybe different variant, not quite the same level of magic, but do you feel like you would have a little bit more of a appreciation for while you're in it?
Yes, I definitely think so, but I also think that I now have some natural internal gyros to not get there again. And because I candidly, dude, I was just redlining. Like I was making content, I was traveling, I was throwing events, I was going to events, I was speaking. I was like, there was a place where it wasn't long-term sustainable. And so I don't know, like, again, I think it was, do I regret it? No, outside of not being present, but I don't know if I would try and set that situation up again, because it was so like it was a lot, man. It was something that was not, like, I was the only person on the marketing team for the first 4 or 5 months. And then my first hire was head of community, Kevin. So like really didn't have like a team until 6, 8 months in. And I was only there for, a little over 2 years. And so, it was if I got there again, I would definitely enjoy it, but I would also be like, fuck. Yeah. We left this place. Why did we come back to Detroit in the winter? I said not again. Like, I think that would be something where I would be very hesitant. But I also think there's a lot of learnings that could have put a lot more guardrails on things where I think there was probably a certain internal expectation that was never going to be met. And so being able to modulate that in a more meaningful way versus like,
Were you, out of curiosity, were you meditating at that time?
No, everything felt like it was. It
doesn't seem like you could meditate and redline at the same time.
It was, well, yeah, because you self-correct.
Yeah.
Where you can, so the whole point of meditation, or not point, but one of the things that you can get when you start to sit. So I'm just crazy, and so I know I need to temper that craziness, but a lot of that craziness can be, directed in some meaningful output. But what happens is the way my dad's friend described it is, you want to live in the gap, and so you'll never get rid of your reactions. Like, you're human. But what you can do is start to push a gap between your reaction and your reactions to your reactions. And so, for example, like somebody cuts you off in traffic, like you yell at it, oh my God, that a-hole cut me off, et cetera, and then that negativity just permeates throughout your day. Versus like, oh my God, that person cut me off. Oh my God, why am I mad? Like, so, and then you can start to back out of it and you get rid of it quicker. And so that is super helpful. But the other thing too is just travel's hard, man. Like, travel's a young man's game, and I was traveling 2.5 weeks of the month. And the other thing is like, sometimes I would land on weekends and stuff. And so like you start to lose weekends and you're back in it. And we don't, had a friend of mine that worked for Red Bull and thought this was a really cool policy, was if you end up traveling or working on a weekend, you just get the next weekday off, which I thought was pretty cool. But I mean, this isn't, we're a bunch of kill or be killed at that point of the growth stage startup. So that's not something that you're going to float that. No, there was not. You're always working through the holidays, but
maybe it'd be interesting to kind of pull it back to like the nerdy, always be testing themes. I mean, with Triple, there was so much learning insight. You could you had the dashboard of the pulse on the performance. Maybe for those in the audience who are curious, like, what are some maybe interesting learnings that you could share that are not proprietary? That's like, hey, this is some of the cool trends I was witnessing, or things that are interesting or notable.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a few things. A couple of them are kind of does, and then a couple of them are quasi interesting. One of the biggest ones was people that had good to great economics just won. Like, you definitely need a product, but like if you have a product that has horrible
attribution,
and
creative,
so there was I just had more gas in my car, and I could go get to a more profitable place instead of having to stop at this gas station. I could actually go to this one where it just changes everything that you could do. And so the way I would describe it to people is, they say you can't outwork out bad diet. It's the same kind of concept in business, where you just can't outmarket bad unit economics. Like, it just is what it is. Like,
you're actually
succeeding,
making it worse.
Even though I'm succeeding, I'm losing you money. And that's like a purpose. So definitely make sure that your economics are intact. A kind of corollary to that is not all products are made for paid media. And so make sure that you're only advertising and again, this is predicated on the goal is profitability and revenue generation. Like if there's other goals at mine where it's like, I just need to move this inventory, I knew that. But assuming that you want to make the most money at the highest profit, like you need to be high margin, high velocity products. And so even when I was at running accounts with the brands, sometimes they might have 10, 20 SKUs and only 2 of them would be pushed with paid media, because it's just like going back to like, I'm winning, but I'm losing. Like the other thing is you want to make sure that that first interaction, because D2C usually doesn't have a retail presence, is amazing. And so the more you can make somebody feel successful and awesome, the closer to the first touch point, like you're golden. And so even if the magnitude of success is way higher, if it's farther away from that origin, it's not as impactful. So people that would have the flagship, really awesome products, and then the community was actually something that was really interesting. People that had community plays were like, so obviously there's some other people that had some really interesting community plays. This is going to sound silly, but like people that planned, like really looked at they weren't thinking like month to month, but they were like, okay, cool. And not to say that you need things like carved in stone, but they had, here's the purchasing moments we're going to create. We see some dips in revenue here. Can we launch a product? Can we do a promotion? Can we do a special holiday? And being able to generate those purchasing moments and think of things annually or at worst quarterly to understand where they're trending was something that was really interesting and meaningful. And then honestly, like, it sounds again silly, but the people that were focused on performance and not sophistication won. And so people that had not only simplified accounts, but like depending on the scale, you only needed 1 to 2 or 3, maybe 3 channels. Like very rarely did we have, you know, we had stores up to $500 million a year, and they were still on, you know, 4 or 5 channels, and the majority of their revenue was still, you know, aggregated to the top 2 kind of thing. And these were more so like, again, going back to those percentage points at the end where it's like, you're an Olympic sprinter, like you do need to add on some other these things because you're maxing out these other big channels. And so, I guess not super meaningful, but the one thing that I did see in the data that was really interesting, and now maybe I'll ping Alan and see if I can get access to data again, was we saw TikTok ad spend just absolutely skyrocket. There was a point in time, I remember that a friend of mine who's big spending, they got to parity almost with Facebook, and it was outspending Google, and they were spending 60, 70K a day. It's like real money. And then that just kind of blew up, which I thought was really interesting. So on my way out, like, I don't know anybody that TikTok was a big spending channel. Now it looks like it's interesting, but now it seems like it's off the back of organic social and shops more so than actual paid spend.
I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, so that's interesting, but that was something that shocked me because I thought it was, looking at the preliminary data, was a runaway train. Snaps was pretty much a defunct platform, pretty much useless. I didn't know anybody that spent on that. And then the ASC and the Google performance actually really, I think that in combination with the targeting, or especially in specific Facebook, they started to figure out kind of the iOS updates and how to just get back to the closer to the glory days of like the ads are delivering, the tracking's better, the targeting's better. Supposedly it was AI where they did it because they can't, they're not allowed to, you know, actually pass the data. And so they were just using that data to then put it through AI, and they spun up, like, that was, I guess, the counterweight to spinning down the metaverse, was that's where they put all that money, was into a huge AI team that just started to help with targeting, tracking, analytics, and stuff like that. And candidly, it has been way better. I mean, definitely from the iOS 14 stage to now, it's only a year and a half ago, and it's night and day. But
those are a lot of people. That's super helpful. That's a lot in there to
those are the big ones. But you know, have a great product is number one. Make sure your economics work. Be able to, you know, generate value for your community, usually too around either consumption or ancillary things to, like, for example, like create at they do the creatine gummies.
Yeah.
He's doing all these kind of like ancillary add-on products. So people that were doing these things of like going back to that job to be done and then building, can you help this person get this job to be done better? And whether that's with your product, whether that's with an add-on product.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Tell us about the new gig. Tell us what you're pumped about. Want to share it?
Yeah, really excited. So ended up going on full-time at FERMAT, FERMATcommerce.com, FERMAT commerce.com. So we do essentially like experimentation on steroids through landing pages at scale. Awesome. So right now we're working with two big brands.
Nice.
Yeah, and so it's been great. It's been really cool to see kind of that. And then just the evolution of the product has been incredible. So right now our experimentation kind of feature is gated to kind of the super high-end enterprise customers, but we'll be kind of rolling that out probably early Q1. We'll be doing some cool events. So obviously the event got to have the events. We'll be doing some cool stuff around community, kind of very similar to the OG Triple L playbook. The one thing that's definitely different is right now we're servicing, I don't know what to call them, like Shopify enterprise client, you know what I mean? Where they're not like Target, but they're not these kind of, $30-50 million year stores where
it was 100 million kind of the.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like for me, it gets to kind of like, 50 to 750 almost, where it's like, that's, again, I mean, maybe 750 gets quasi enterprise, but again, like the 750 is, I don't know, like DTC enterprise or something. Where it's like this, because it's a business. It's a real business. Don't get me wrong, but again, it's not a Home Depot. It's not a Target, Best Buy. Where you Walmarts of the world, where that's proper enterprise. But anyways, so if you want to go do some cool experimentation, we do a bunch of cool CRO stuff, and then being able to deploy kind of your ad creative to maybe 4 different destinations, whether it's a quiz, advertorial, some gift guide, things of that nature. You can spin it up real quick and then test it out, see how you make more money.
Love it. How are you thinking about kind of, building out resourcing and supporting them and growing them? Or is there certain needs that you have now or folks that you're kind of looking to bring on board in the next, 12 months? Or
it's a fantastic question. Right now, probably build out kind of that 4 or 5 person squad. Kind of that's really where I like to operate. Like I don't like to manage. I like to lead. Like give me some killers and let me run. And then if we need more hands, they can hire them. And I don't need to. Not that I don't need to deal with them like I'm too affluent, but like they can manage their own people like that. That's an extension of them. And I just want to deal with the lieutenants, and then if we need more people, we can hire them. And so doing probably a community person, content person, brand person, product marketing, probably be the squad, and then fill in some holes here and there with contracting.
Very cool.
Then, but I'm excited. It's the co-founders are amazing, the product's great, and the value we're generating is real. So it's really nice to be in kind of post PMF. Now it's like, okay, cool.
You guys got a lot there to work with.
The product is. It's kind of a little bit of a marketer's wet dream, where the product is amazing and the marketing there's a lot of opportunities to grow.
I love it. I love it. You kind of reference the theme of leadership, throughout your career and what you've done, and in referencing to the team that you're looking to create. What's some advice you give to leaders out there? There may be new leaders or leaders that are looking to improve. You've obviously done it well. What would you counsel people on?
I would say the first thing, which is super important, is understand the most effective communication style one-on-one. And so for me, I'm kind of gregarious, rough around the edges, loud, and I can be overwhelming to introverts, and they won't either say what they mean or they'll just kind of cow. And not in like a judgmental way. It's just that's just their personality. And so what I found with people that are more introverted was giving them time to go work on their own and think of their messaging. So they did really well with like written messaging, where it's like, hey, cool, here's what we need from you. Here's what I'm thinking. Take this home, figure it out, and just fill in this Notion doc, and we'll chat about it tomorrow and stuff like that. So that was super helpful, understanding people's communication style and how they take feedback. And that's also a function of hiring, where I actually prefer people with scars versus a pretty face, because if you haven't, like, even if you're super talented, if you haven't dealt with failure, I don't know how you're going to react in like the fog of war. And some people who haven't failed before, it's just not that it's right or wrong. It just doesn't fit my management style. Like, I just don't deal with that well. And so all the people that I hired were not only vibes. So like, there's a funny thought experiment of like, if the plane got delayed and you two were both at the airport, like, would you be mad or not? And so like, I would hang, like, we all hung out together actually, like after work and stuff. So we had a really like, chemistry and team morale matters. And that's something that I was an IC for most of my career that I never believed. I was like, dude, my trust falls, or like, I don't care. Absolutely matters. So I would say communication style, understand kind of the personalities on the team, make sure team morale and people rowing in the right direction, the incentives are there. And then I think the last thing would be ultimately like goal setting and expectations. So I found that I'm very allergic to decisions by committee. I think people operate the best, especially killers, when they have their own silos of responsibility, because you can start to, and not to get too economicsy, but you get into a free rider problem and nobody really owns it. It's like this person. So it's like, oh, there's shit in the restroom. Well, if it's a public restroom, I'm not going to clean it up. And so, but if that was like your restroom, like, dude, gross, somebody pooped in here, but I'm going to clean it up. And so there's one of my favorite David Ogilvy lines, or go walk through the parks in your city, you'll never see a statue for a committee. And so I was just very big on giving people responsibility and very clear output goals of like, hey, this is what you're responsible for. This is what I needed to do. But I also had to make sure, like, Tommy was really hard on himself. Alexa, like, my team was very hard on themselves. And so I had to get people out of the mindset of right and wrong or good and bad, and more into a scientific method of like, here's my thesis, here's the bet I want to make, here's what I think is going to happen, here's what did happen, here's what I'm going to do in the future. And I had no problem with bets that missed. I had a problem with bad bets. So if you couldn't explain to me like, why did we spend that money, or like, what were you thinking behind it? It's like, oh, there's a great book called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, and she calls it resulting, where it's like, you get so fixated on the result, where at the end of the day, building a system with a high probability of output, like if you can build a system with an 80% success rate, 90% success rate, and you land in the 10 or 20%, it's like, hey, it is what it is. It just happened. Don't throw the system out, you know? And so those would be the kind of the things that I would get around. And then I would definitely meet with your lieutenants once a week.
Love it.
I did one-on-ones every week, and when I would travel and stuff like that, and we didn't have them, you could feel a gap. And
I think like that you could feel a gap. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely a place that you can get to with some mind melds where, so at the beginning when I would hire my people, you ask them, hey, what do you think I would do in the situation? And then once the answer like lines up with what you were thinking, hey, go run, you know, shackles off, go cut your own wheat kind of thing. Yeah. But where you really get interesting is when you're like, no, that's not what I was thinking. It's actually better than the answer I had. Yeah. That's when you know you hired well, where you're like, that's fantastic. I didn't think of that. And that's even better than the answer I had.
It's amazing.
You
Very
go
cool.
do the thing.
Very cool. Yeah. What do a lot of people who don't know about you that you want to share?
Maybe I'll go braggadocious. I used to be a really good runner. So I was freshman of the year at conference in Division I.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to be pretty quick.
What event?
This was cross country.
Okay.
So this was 8K, and then nationals are 10K, and then
that's amazing.
I did track and field with mile 2 mile in high school, and then 3,200 and 5K on the track.
Wow. What are you doing now to
not running?
Do your thing.
Not running. Yeah. No.
It's hard as you get older. Running.
It's horrible for your body.
Yeah.
It was when I look back on it, though, I think it was really helpful because it's so mentally good. Like, I think there's a certain aspect of getting to a place of uncomfortableness and being able to, you know, like, hey, I know it's uncomfortable, but it's okay. You're not going to die. Like, being able to deal with that is very meaningful to build character. But now I'm just doing some workout stuff. I pickleball a little bit. I used to be really into racquetball. I might get back into that. I used to do some slacklining. Yeah, all right now, just trying.
I'm gonna get on the pickleball court, man. Yeah. Tried once, I didn't make it, but we'll get out there.
We have to. The you know Tyler from Peachy Babies?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think I met him at the event.
got a crib. He just has a
He has his own court.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's so
okay.
nice.
That's
He
how we're
travels
gonna
on
do
foot,
it
but it's
one
so
day.
nice. I know. Well, because I was thinking too, the community in town, dude, we could get like a weekly, just
Oh my
like
gosh.
standing date and have people
Mhm.
come meet up and run through. And
I went
we'll
and
have to do
wake
it.
surfed with Adam, and
That's
no one else
it.
showed up.
That's it. I told him to cancel. I told him it was there was always
No,
things, and
it
he
was
was
the
like,
best
"Send
day.
it."
It was the
He's
best day.
He's that boat's gorgeous.
It was awesome.
He's
We
the
had a great
best.
time.
No,
We had the lake
Adam's-
to ourselves. No one was out.
Yeah. He's the best.
We'll get pickleball going. Rabah, Stud, Pied Piper of D2C EComm. This has been an awesome conversation.
This
man.
is great. It's the first time I've done the look in the camera. I
Yeah.
feel like I made it. I was
I
a
feel
little
like this
nervous.
is-
This is like
You
this
knew it.
is advanced level. Like talk to the camera. I feel like the TV people.
we knew what to do with our hands.
Yeah. Am I looking at the camera? No, he's talking now. I got to look at him. Or no, we need the producer in there. Turn up the heat. Turn up the heat. Ask him about
The bass.
click.
The bass needs to be high.
Yeah, exactly.
And just want to finish with this. For folks who want to find out more about Rabah and all the cool things you're doing at FERMAT, where can they find you? What's the
I'm on the Twitters at Rabah Rahil. I am on LinkedIn-ish. Just send me a DM. Candidly, I suck at DMs, but shoot your shot. I suck at text as well. So
Now's your chance.
if it's not like text, DM, or text, WhatsApp, or Slack.
I might
pretty
recommend
terrible at it,
an
but
upcoming
smoke signal
in
or-
real life event.
Yes, that's
the way to do it.
the best way to get. I love everybody at the event, so definitely get me there. But unless you get the text message number, it can be a challenge.
You're the man.
Ty, you're the best.
Pleasure.
You're so good.
See you, everybody.
We did it.
Woo!